Ladies and nice guys, Andy here, day 241 of the Inner Winner Show. And if you're watching the YouTube video, you see I've been doing a bit of gardening, see? So, why have I been doing gardening? Because I'm a nice guy. And nice guys garden. We're going to be talking about nice guys. And I'm actually a nice guy. I have nice guy syndrome. So if you guys don't know what nice guy is, it's generally a derogatory term. And derogatory means bad. And bad is not good.
I think it's derived from the word degrade. No?
This isn't fucking English, okay? Nobody cares about your nerd shit. I love you, but fuck.
Also, I look after the plants. You don't.
I'm the gardener here. I'm the nice guy. So nice guy is usually like an insult for a guy that like tries to be nice, and sometimes it can be used like he's a bit of a simp, as in he tries too hard with women. He'll get walked all over. He'll be a doormat. He doesn't have a backbone. He doesn't have any sort of independence. He's needy. It can be used like that. It can be used for guys who try too hard to be nice, like they're pretending. They're clearly putting on an act. And they're being manipulative, but pretending that they're not. So it can come across as like passive aggressive or snaky. I use that word a lot. A lot of pickup artists, not all of them, but a lot of them have like nice guy tendencies. They're trying to be, instead of being direct, they're kind of wishy-washy, and they're like, hey, like, you know, do you have the time? Like, what's the weather? Like, and they'll skirt around the fact that they're trying to actually hit on you, and then before you know it, they've talked to you for like 15 minutes, and they're like, yo, do you want to be friends? And then they're friends, and then they try and get you drunk and shit like that.
Yeah, it's a bit ingenuine.
Yeah, for sure. So, nice guy. I am a nice guy. I think I'm a pretty nice fucking person.
Yeah, and that's, like we said, like obviously there is, like it has some negative connotations.
Sure, if I go around saying I'm a nice guy, most people will think that's a bad thing.
Yeah, but generally speaking, you can be like, yeah, that person is a nice guy.
Yeah.
Just like she's a nice girl. Like that's not... It can have like no further meaning than the actual definition of like.
But
nice.
The word is basically bastardized, and we can't use it for that. So before we came to this podcast, I said like, what word should we use instead? This is something we've talked about many times in the past, and the word that I usually use is decent. Like he's a decent person, or you can even say good if you want, but I like decent. The reason I use decent instead of good, you know, like I'm a decent dude. I'm a decent person. I treat women decently, rather than I'm a good person or I treat them good. Is because I like to set low bars with a lot of things to leave wiggle room for the fact that I'm human and that you guys are human.
Sure.
So rather than saying you have to be a good guy, which is like all the way up here, that's like, it's like almost religious undertones, right? Like you have to be a good person. You're going to get in the pearly gates of heaven. Like setting that bar a little lower and say, what's my minimum behavior that I'm willing to, that I'm okay with? Being decent to people. That's a pretty good start.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure. I also think that there's going to be some days where you don't feel particularly nice, and then that all
you're
falls
grumpy.
apart. I think Mark Manson used to have something like, you don't want to be like a good person. You're a person that does good things now and then. Like
yeah, I like that.
Because as soon as you start labeling yourself with like, this is definitive, this is like what I must be.
What are you going to do when you fall short?
When you don't meet up to that, it's like, fuck, it's all over. What's the point? Why am I even trying to do this thing?
Yeah, and you gave the example of, let's say you're going grocery shopping and you're just not in a good mood. If you're trying to be a nice guy or a good guy, you're gonna have to talk to the cashier and like rev yourself up and say like, no, come on, I need to be nice. Like they're talking to me, I need to give something back. Like that's way too much pressure on yourself, and it's going to lead to resentment. You're going to be resentful for the fact that you have to always be nice and put on this act. And this is the biggest problem with nice guys, is that they have this act that they need to put on. They feel like this pressure. If instead you're just trying to be decent, when the cashier talks to you, you'll probably just mutter something or say like something, like the bare minimum of decency. Yeah. Like a human talk to you, so you'll say something back. How's your day going? Yes, okay.
Yeah,
you've still been decent.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not trying to be nice or good. It also stops you. So setting the bar lower and saying, I want to be a decent person. I want to be a decent dude. Setting that bar lower means that you will only give what you can give. So if you're having a bad day and you don't have much to give, you're not in a good mood, you don't feel like going out and putting smiles on faces, right? If you're just trying to be decent, yeah, pretty much all of us can do that on our worst day ever.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you have more to give on that day where you are in a really good mood, then
You'll
you can
give
start
more.
giving that positive energy, but you're not setting that as the baseline.
For sure.
Which means that everything extra you do, it's a bonus, it's a positive thing. It's not just good enough. It's like, oh, this is great. Like I went above and beyond. So
yeah. Whereas let's do the opposite example. Let's say you set the bar really high and you say, I have to be a nice guy, or I want to be a good guy. I want to be a good person. On that day when you don't have much to give, you're now faced with a choice. Okay, either I can not be a nice guy. Fuck, no, I said I want to be a nice guy. Fuck, okay, I have to go above and beyond. You have to force yourself. That's where the resentment comes from. It's like, not, this isn't fair. Why do I have to always be putting on an act? Why do I have to be a good guy all the time? Why do I have to? You're giving something that you can't afford to be giving. You don't have anything to give, and you're forcing yourself to give it to other people.
Yeah, you're almost setting yourself up to fail.
You will fail. You'll get resentful. You won't be able to do a good, or you'll do it like begrudgingly. You know, the cashier at the checkout is talking to you, and you're like, my day is great, thanks, huh? And you do a fake smile, and you're just like, fuck this bitch. And she'll keep asking you questions because she thinks you're in a good mood, because you're trying to be. And then before you know it, she's asked you like 10 questions, and the entire time you're like, I don't want to fucking have this conversation. Like, I'm not in a good mood. But you're like, but I have to. And that's where the biggest danger comes with nice guy behavior, is doing stuff for other people that you really can't afford to be doing at that point in time because you don't have the emotional energy for it. You're in a bad mood, whatever. But you're doing it because you think you have to. And then the problem with that is you then expect other people to do the same for you, which not everyone is running around with that rule book of like, I want to be a nice guy. You are.
Yeah.
And then you get resentful if they don't do it back for you.
Yeah, you feel like you're owed something for putting in all of this effort. I mean, this is a very, very extreme example, but I can't remember the name, but that like guy who ended up being like a mass shooter who was like, I'm such a nice guy.
Talking about Elliot Rogers or Elliot Roger?
Yeah, I think so. And it's like, I'm such a nice guy, like I'm owed like the attention of women.
It wasn't just nice guy, but it was that, and like he also thought like I'm rich and like
it's basically if you put these expectations on yourself, you're going to expect other people to give that back to you, and when they don't do that, you're gonna have that narrative like the world is unfair, things are unjust, I'm owed something. It's not a good way to go about.
I did a favor because you acknowledge that it's a favor. If you're being a nice guy and you're having a bad day, if you're trying to be a nice guy and you're having a bad day and you don't have anything to give, you're not in the mood to be nice, but you force yourself to, you expect something back in return. Why do you expect something back in return? Because you just had to do something really hard that you didn't want to do. That should tell you everything you need to know right there. If you're sitting there saying like, you owe me something, that's your acknowledgement that you gave something that you shouldn't have given. When you give stuff, like if I'm nice to a girl, or if I'm decent to a girl, again, I'll use the word decent. If I'm decent to a girl, it's because I want to be, because I can in that moment. I have that to give.
Yeah.
And then there's no resentment. I don't expect her to do anything back. A thank you is nice, sure, but like, I don't even expect that because it's like, I'm giving you this because I have this to give. Whereas if I was trying to be really nice or good, I would be giving stuff that I can't afford to give. And then I would I would expect something in return, and that leads to a resentment. That's not fair on her. She didn't fucking ask for it.
Yeah, I think it's actually in the book You Can't Afford the Luxury of a Negative Thought, and it talks about like receiving and giving, and the true like act of giving, you derive enjoyment just from knowing that you gave something to somebody else.
Yeah,
it's meant to be a pleasurable thing. It's definitely
you're meant
not
to have extra that you can give.
It's not a self-sacrificial thing.
Yeah, it's like you're giving, you have extra and you're saying, here, take some of this extra stuff that I have because I can afford to give it to you. You're not supposed to be like flagellating yourself or like whipping yourself or cutting your own arm off and saying, here, I can't afford this, but whatever, I'm a good guy, so I'm going to give you this arm. It's like, no, don't give what you can't afford to give. If you're having a bad day, don't be a good guy. Don't be a nice guy. Be a decent person. I'm not telling you, I want to make that clear. This isn't permission to go out and be a dick. Just do the bare minimum. If someone talks to you, just acknowledge what they said and say like, yeah. Or just be honest and say like, look, I'll be honest. I say this to you a lot. I use this exact phrase. If I'm in a really bad mood or I'm having a really bad day and you want something from me or you need something, I will say, look, I'm really sorry. I don't have much to give today. I can't give much to you today. Do that. You can be honest about this shit. You can say like, look, I'm in a real bad mood. I'm sorry. I can't be like, I can be decent to you. Like I'll be bare minimum decent, but I don't have much more than that. And then people are like, okay, cool. Rather than this expectation of like, I got to be a nice guy. It's like, fuck, you can't always be a nice guy. You're not always going to be a nice guy.
Yeah, and I mean, you can't necessarily expect it to happen, but I think, at least I could say, being with you and in your case, after a while, once you start meeting your own needs, you will actually like, instantly have more to give
Yep.
after you start meeting more and more of your own needs. And
Yeah,
then you
that's an
can,
argument for selfishness, which is a good thing. Yeah,
can be a nice guy. Like you can be like a genuinely
a decent person.
empathetic person that, you know, gives a shit about other people.
Mhm.
That's kind of what you want to aim for, just as a human,
Yeah.
not even necessarily like interfacing with women. It's just be a pretty decent person.
I agree. So let's talk a little more about, we'll just run through a couple of quick signs that you may be a nice guy. So people usually mean when they say like nice guy or you have nice guy syndrome, being over the top nice in all situations. Like even again, when you don't have that to give, like you're having a bad day, but you just try and put on a happy face. And no, putting on a happy face can be good, but sometimes you're going over the top. So I think you guys know what I mean when I say over the top. Not having a backbone, like having no boundaries, no principles, nothing you stand up for, no line in the sand that you're, you know, uncomfortable with other people crossing. Like you just let people walk all over you and do whatever the fuck they want, basically. And you'll just go along with anything.
Yeah.
That's usually the biggest sign of a nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
Putting up with bad behavior from other people, letting people use you, letting people manipulate you. I said not having boundaries and standing up for yourself. Letting people, or you using manipulative behaviors yourself, like covert contracts, they call it, which is where you do something nice for someone else, but you secretly expect them to do it back for you. And so you're like, you wash the dishes for your wife or your girlfriend or whatever, but then you're sitting there waiting for her to say, you know, thanks, honey, that's amazing, or for her to like give you a blowjob or give you sex or something. And when she doesn't do it, you get pissed off. That's called a covert contract, because it's like a contract. You expected something in return, like a contract, but it was covert. You didn't tell her. You didn't overtly say it. So those are some nice guy symptoms. If you have them, go read the book No More Mr. Nice Guy. I'll leave a link in the description. I think that's probably just the best book. And there's another book, When I Say No, I Feel Guilty. That's another good book for the same topic. But start with No More Mr. Nice Guy and then move on to that second book. That's probably just like all you need, really. Like nothing we could say here would help nice guy syndrome as much as that fucking book.
Yeah, if you really internalize both of the things.
Yeah.
Like both of the core principles in each of those books.
Yeah. And then other things will help, like self-improvement helps because it helps build your self-esteem up.
Yeah.
Losing weight, going to the gym, becoming more of a man. Or if you're a woman, like if you're a woman, learning assertiveness. Like that's why I'm giving you the second book. When I Say No, I Feel Guilty. That's a book on learning to be more assertive and saying what you want and not just kind of going along with, you know, and that doesn't mean you're a bossy bitch or something. It just means you don't let other people force you to do stuff that you secretly don't really want to do. You just don't know how to say no, or you don't know how to say like, can we try something else? Like
another big part of that book is also...
Which one, the second book?
Oh, sorry, yeah. When I Say No, I Feel Guilty.
Yep.
Because I finished reading that recently. Another big part of it is not being so affected by people's like criticism or judgment or comments.
It's a great book for women. I feel like that book is like just made for women. Men too as well, like great book for men. But like that's one of those books that I would recommend to almost every woman. Like I think every woman would benefit from like, you're not a bad person if you say no. Like that's literally the title of the book.
Yeah.
Well, figuratively the title, metaphorically. So pretty much every girl that I date, and pretty much every girl that I have dated for like the last few years, and I'm sure you would attest to this, says that I'm like nice or decent or good or kind or empathetic.
Yeah.
Like, which goes against, you know, and you guys are pretty on board with this, goes against the idea of like, you have to be a douchebag to get women. You have to be like an asshole to get women. Women like jerks. It's like, no, that's the stupid cliche that carries over from every high schooler. Like, women like jerks and assholes and jocks. It's like, no, women like guys who have a fucking backbone and aren't complete pussies. And that just happens to have a crossover. There's a Venn diagram where there's an overlap with assholes and jerks, sorry, and also backbone, confident, doesn't let other people use him.
Yeah.
You can also be in the other part of, I should have actually drawn a Venn diagram on the screen. You can still be in the part of the Venn diagram that's confident, masculine, has boundaries, but is also a decent person. Yeah. You don't have to be a giant fucking asshole. Yeah. If you want to be an asshole, fine, sure, it's your life. I wouldn't encourage that. I would prefer you not to read my stuff and not to engage in me. Don't tell me you're being an asshole if you're going to do that. But yeah, you can be a super nice dude. I think most people that come to my forums, pretty much everyone that listens to this, it's funny how much they latch onto my shit when they've come from like the Red Pill or something like that. And they're just like, how many emails do I get where someone's like, holy fuck, like, are you telling me I'm allowed to be like decent to women? And it's like, yeah, man. Like, and it's like an epiphany for them. They're like, do you mean I can get laid like as much as you? And it's like, yeah, I'm nice to all the chicks, like, or I'm decent to all the chicks.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've touched on this before, but I think a lot of the red pill involves you needing to resist your own instincts. To like,
yeah, and there's a very big instinct in men to be, in most people, but especially men. I'll probably say more men because it's towards women being decent. Like most men want to fucking be decent.
Be an empathetic person.
Yeah, for sure.
Care about how somebody else is feeling, particularly when you're intimate with that person.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of guys feel fucking weird, and that's why I think like a lot of my content is like a breath of fresh air, because they feel fucking weird treating girls like shit. Because they're like, but I'm having sex with her, and she's giving me something nice. Like we're having a good time together, and I'm supposed to be an asshole to her. Like I'm supposed to neg her or keep her waiting. Or play tricks on her, like, you know, she texts me and I wait like 3 hours so she thinks I'm busy. That just feels manipulative to me. Do I have to do that? And I'm like, no, why are you doing that shit? Just fucking be normal, man. And if she's not into you, like, cool, go find another one who is. There's a million girls who will be into you. You just got to find the ones.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we've talked about how the red pill is like the polar opposite to like nice guy syndrome. And
I think it serves a purpose.
Absolutely.
I genuinely think it's like, so don't take this as, you know, I know we talk about the red pill a lot, but I always add these caveats every fucking time. Anyone from the red pill listening, I'll give you guys a little bit of love. 50% love, 50% like, I would like to guide you more back to some of the principles that I know you guys have inside. You've just kind of lost your way or forgotten about them. And yeah, sure, not everyone is like principled. I know that. But yeah, I think most guys on the red pill have come from the opposite, where they had nice guy syndrome. And the red pill is the antidote to that. For sure, it absolutely is. It's a really good way to pull you out of nice guy syndrome. It is. Sure. But then from there, you need to kind of bounce back in the other direction, somewhere in the middle, and go like, okay, now I'm not a nice guy. I have boundaries. I have principles. I will stand up for myself. Women can't use me. I'll never let them use me ever again. What can I do now that I'm here? Can I be decent while I'm here? You can kind of experiment with it. Try being nice. Try treating women like they're on the same team. Try opening up. Try talking to them. Try asking them questions. Try sharing some of your vulnerabilities. Again, go back and listen to that podcast we did a couple of days ago on like how to be masculine while still, or how to be vulnerable while still being masculine. You know, you don't have to have a big breakdown and be like, oh my God, I'm sad. I'm struggling. You start experimenting with that and you see like, oh, girls actually kind of like that behavior. In fact, they reward me for that behavior, for being decent to them. And I'm getting laid more because I'm working on my self-improvement, you know, all that kind of stuff. Shit, I guess I don't need to be an asshole. I don't need to be a nice guy. I shouldn't be a nice guy. And then I also shouldn't be all the way on the other side and be Mr. Douchebag or Mr. fucking asshole. Douchebag is fine. Like, you know, douchebag's a weird word.
It's a
like sometimes
for asshole, no?
Yeah, but like sometimes douchebag is like not a bad thing. It can be like a playful thing. It depends on how it's said.
Sure.
It's like the word fuck. I can be like, fuck. And that's like funny, but I can be like, fuck. And then that's like, you know, it's kind of like that. Different connotations depending on the tone of voice and the context and stuff like that. But like, you know, every now and then girls will say to me, the girl that we interviewed, you know who I mean?
Yeah.
The unicorn. One of the girls that we're seeing recently, quite a few times, she said like, you know, she doesn't say I'm an ass, but she says like, you know, that kind of like, because I joke with her.
You tease her a lot.
Yeah, I tease her all the time. Yeah. And so you can kind of be a bit like douchey and a bit assholey. It's in a nice way. It's coming from a nice place.
It's
the opposite. Yeah, the opposite is the intention is to make her laugh for sure. But that's still the opposite of like nice guy behavior. A nice guy would never joke with women and like risk making them laugh or something, right?
Well, the idea is risk like insulting them.
Yeah, and it's a fine line. Obviously, I never insult anyone. Like, and the first hint that they were like, I'm not okay with this, I'd be like, oh, no, fair enough. Like, let's stop, you know. But you can be a little jokey. You can be a little silly. I think like a lot of these nuances, you kind of miss them when you're first getting into this stuff. Like if you've been a nice guy and you're pulling away from it, you tend to go too far in the other direction and you do turn into a douchebag. Maybe you try and make jokes, but you just end up insulting and you're like, okay, I'm going to joke because Andy said I should joke. And you're like, hey, who cut that hair? Your dad? And it's like, well, that's just, I mean, I get that you're trying to make a joke, but to a lot of women, that's just like, that's not funny. Like, it's not hugely insulting. Maybe that was a bad example, but it's certainly not funny.
Yeah. I mean, you
it's
like
just like a
teasing
weird,
me a lot.
I tease you a lot. That's true. That's true.
Not
So I guess that's another point. Yeah, good point. So if you have a smile on your face, you can tell that it's a joke. the point that I'm making here is a lot of these like nuances you kind of miss when you're first figuring this stuff out, and that's kind of fine. Like, don't stress. Sometimes you will be over the top arsehole to a girl, and you're like, "Fuck, I didn't actually mean that," and that will happen sometimes. Try not to do it, but it will happen. It's kind of par for the course. Sometimes you'll go too far in the other direction. You'll try and be too much. You'll try this like decency thing that Andy's talking about, and you'll just end up being a bit of a doormat because you're trying too hard to be decent to her when you don't have that to give. Like, again, maybe you're having a bad day and she's like, "Hey, can I crash at yours after we have sex?" And you're just like, okay. And then you don't get any sleep because you can't sleep. Tons of guys that can't sleep with women, they just don't sleep that well. Tons of people don't sleep that well with a stranger in their bed, or even someone that they've slept with a few times. But then they go like, "But I have to be a decent guy." It's like, again, give what you're comfortable giving. How many girls sleep over here? Zero.
To be fair, we see a lot of them during the day.
Okay, when I was dating.
Still 0.
How many times have you slept over? And don't count when we like live together, when we travel and stuff like that.
After a while, we just agreed that it was best that.
Because I don't sleep. Yeah, I was like, I'm real sorry. Like, this was when you're my fucking girlfriend. I was like, hey, you probably shouldn't sleep over because I just can't sleep.
Yeah.
And to girls that I was seeing casually before you, none ever stayed over. Never. I never. Like, so many guys say that to me. Like, do you ever let girls stay over? And I'm like, fuck no, because I just can't sleep. I will tell them. I'll give them a heads up. I'll be like, look, I really can't sleep. Like, I will not fucking sleep. And like, my sleep is really important to me. I'll just be a complete grumpy bastard the next day. And so like, just make sure you know how to get home. And like, I'll make sure it's not too late. I never see girls. A lot of guys see girls until like 3 a.m. and shit. That's never really been my style, apart from like, if we had like that first time we had a threesome.
Yeah.
That was till like 6 a.m. the next day.
Stay over.
That's like a weird circumstance, but yeah, we got a bit off topic here. But basically, like, let's talk a little bit before we finish up. We got about 8 more minutes.
Okay.
With the idea of like a covert contract with nice guys, like they do something nice and then they expect something back in return. There's a Reddit or a subreddit called, I think it's just called Nice Guys, like /r or r/nice guys. And they're basically screenshots of nice. It's fucking hilarious. That subreddit legitimately does make me crack up. Search for, like, click the button top, like sort by top, and then go all time, so you can see like the all-time best posts on there.
I feel like I know what this is gonna be.
These are the ones that crack me the fuck up. It's like the guy's like, he'll do like the base level of like nice guy behavior, right? He'll be like, "Hey, I wrote you this poem," or like, "Hey, pretty lady, I just wanted to tell you that you're really beautiful," and then she'll write like, "That's really sweet, I really appreciate that, but I actually have a boyfriend," and then he'll reply like, "Fuck you, you stupid skank, like how dare you." There's so many like that where it's just different variations of that. Like, guy does some like modicum of like nice guy behavior.
Yeah.
Like tiny little snippet of nice guy behavior. And then girl's like, "Hey, I really appreciate that, but like, actually I'm taken." And then he's just like, "How fucking dare you?" And he like takes it back. He's like, "Fuck you."
Yeah.
Like, give me my compliment back, you fucking ugly whore.
Yeah.
Bitch. And so, yeah, go read that subreddit. That subreddit cracks me up. That's a very good. It's over the top, and some of those are extreme examples, sure. But it's a good in your face example of what nice guy behavior can lead to if you let it build up. Now, I imagine these guys who are posting, like who are talking like that, have tried that like 50 times, and they're probably at a point where they're like, "I'm sick of being a nice guy. Women never appreciate me. They just like the jerks and the jocks." And then he explodes, and you're only seeing that one screenshot where he explodes. Sure. I'm sure but that's the point. Is that a nice guy? No. That's a fucking asshole. That's a fucking dickhead.
The impression,
he's giving too much that he can't afford to give.
The impression after that is like, that guy's a psycho. Like, everything is fake. He's like a liar.
Yeah, he didn't mean any of it. Again, it's this concept of what we talked about at the start. He's giving more than he can afford to give. He didn't have that to give, and so he gave it, and he thought, well, it's basically like a loan. This is a good analogy. I just thought of it. I'm so fucking smart. So it's like a loan. He's going like, "Okay, I will loan you this like nice guy, this compliment. I'll loan you this. You got to give me something. You got to pay it back.
Yeah.
Because I'm in debt now. And then if she doesn't pay it back, he's like, "Fuck you. How dare you not do something for my compliment? How dare you not suck my dick? I'm in debt now, you bitch." So it's like, you shouldn't be giving more than you can afford. If you have nothing to give, just be the bare minimum base level of decency. Like, decent. And a lot of the time, decent means you don't have to do anything. Just, base level, like if someone talks to you, just say like, hey, thanks, and then that's it. Like, you don't say, I have plenty of days where I give one word answers to something. That's decency. I think ignoring someone, most people would say, is not decent. Like that kind of base level.
Sure.
A girl says like, she sends you a text like, hey, can I come see you? If you're just not in the mood, just reply like, hey, I'm really not feeling it today. I'm having a rough day. Like, I'll text you like tomorrow. That's decent.
Yeah.
That's not over the top. You don't have to be nice. Even if sometimes it will happen that someone will come to you and say like, yo, I really need to talk. Like, I'm having a bad day. If you're also having a bad day and you're in a really bad place, you can't afford to be nice that day. So just be decent. Just be like, look, I'm really sorry. I want to be here for you today, but I'm going through some shit myself. I just don't have anything to give you today. If I sit here and listen to your stuff, I'm going to feel like no one cares about me. I've got my own shit. I'm really sorry, but I can't do this for you today. Like, is there someone else you can talk to?
Yeah.
Like I do that plenty of times. I do that with you.
Yeah.
I can't give you anything today. I'm sorry. I have nothing to give. And that's like that base level of decency. Rather than going above and beyond and trying to be like nice guy who just ends up resenting people because you're giving out fucking loans that you expect to be repaid immediately. That's the other thing. Nice guys give these loans and expect them to be repaid basically immediately.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be nice to you. Now you better sit on my face immediately. Rather than like, I'll be nice to you and like hopefully over time karma will pay off. And because you can be decent. Again, I don't like using the word nice. You can go, I give a lot of shit for free. How many articles most of my shit is free. How many articles and podcasts did I do before I even started making money? Like fucking 300 or something, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not doing that to be nice. I'm doing that to be decent, also because I like writing. I'm doing that for me. But the point is, I didn't expect an immediate payoff. Like, I'm doing all this shit. The 5th article I write, you guys have to start supporting my Patreon. It's like, no, I'm giving you what I can afford to give. And then hopefully, eventually it comes back. And it has. It is now coming back.
Yeah.
And so nice guys kind of do the opposite, where they'll give you something and then immediately expect something back. So a nice guy writing a website would write the same stuff as me, but then within 10 articles be like, hey guys, you're not supporting the channel, like blah, 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 blah.
I think again it does.
Which, to be fair, I did do one podcast where I literally like said like, you guys aren't supporting the channel. So that null and voids everything I just said.
Mm-hmm.
Scrap the whole podcast. I'm a hypocrite. We could do a podcast on hypocrisy.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, keep going. Whatever. You guys don't need to support the channel. I love you guys.
It'd be nice if they did, though.
No, fuck them. Don't support. In fact, everyone on my Patreon, I need you to delete. Shit, imagine if they did. That'd be fine. And all my coaching clients that cancel, they're like, I want a refund. I want a refund on the sessions we've done because you insulted me, and I'm not okay with that. That's like not in my rule book. And then I'll say, joke's on you, faggot. And then I'll jump off the balcony and kill myself. And then they can't get their money back.
We're on level 2. So
who wins then? 400 IQ, me.
You're just going to get injured. You're not dying jumping off level 2.
Is that all you wanted to say on this podcast? After you've insulted my entire audience, how dare you, madam?
Do you think the sun had detracted from your message at any point?
Do I think what? The sun had detracted from my message. This was a very serious podcast.
Yeah.
We actually did a good job on this podcast. Shout outs to us. This is meta now. We're now talking about the podcast during the podcast.
Yeah.
This is normally the bits I cut out. Fuck it. You guys can see the behind the scenes. Just like I see behind your mum's scenes when she's getting changed.